and the mustachioed player. The other thing, I wanted to share this one. Yeah, this is one. Now, this is part of the silliness of the religion of baseball. The Aaronic benediction, Aaron's benediction, the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Behold the staff of Aaron. And then he talks about beholding the bat of Aaron. And he goes on to talk about Hank Aaron and his transition from really the racial epithets that were tossed at him, even as he was about to break Babe Ruth's record. And so he was saying for Israelites to reach the promised land, they had to wander in the desert for 40 years. For Hank Aaron, he had to endure years of bigotry. And then he hit that baseball and found not his salvation necessarily, but his liberation from the hatred that people had aimed at him. So that's one of the things that may not be taken very seriously. Another one is fear no evil. This is from the 23rd Psalm. And this is from my ancestor, Carl Hubble. Fearing no evil. He had to fear in an all-star game Lou Gehrig, Babe Ruth, Jimmy Fox, Al Simmons of the White Sox, Joe Cronin of the Senators. And he struck them all out. Walked into the darkest valley of sure baseball death, feared no evil, and left the field exalted. And they talked about his, what was the ball? A reverse curveball, a screwball. And how Hubble then kind of, once again, found he had overcome. So, and that's true of all sports, really, that sense of victory and not being afraid and believing.
Big one that ties in with faith, which ties in with doubt. And you want to talk about doubt and faith and then belief. And belief is a big thing. It was, it was Tug McGraw.
Yeah.
Tug McGraw, back in 1973, July 1973, he yelled, "You gotta believe." And at that time, they were midway through the season. The Giants were having an absolutely horrible season, mediocre season. And with that mantra, fans started picking up. The Giants went ahead that year to win the World Series. Was it the Giants? Yeah, no, it was the Mets. I'm sorry. I should know better than that. It was the Mets that went on to win the World Series in 1973. Based on that, and you will see, believe, I gotta believe. That's been a big thing.
Yeah. My guest today is Bob White. He is a retired Presbyterian minister and an author of some books. The most recent book is not about baseball, but it's about ice skating. The title of which is...
Oh my goodness, you're asking me what the title of my book is?
Yeah, Something on Ice.
The what?
It's Something on Ice.
It is, yes, Death on Ice.
Death on Ice, right, okay, good. I didn't mean to throw you a curve, no pun intended.
Well, some people can't hit curves.
The other night, at the first playoff game, we were winning, and then Trenton had a guy on third, another guy on second, no outs. And now my doubts begin.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we won the game. And you asked me later if that contributed to my faith or my belief. What's the difference between faith and belief?
Some people will say, some scholars will say, that you can't have one without the other, and that it requires faith in order to believe. And others will say, oh no, you have to believe and then you have faith. Yeah. I'd rather go back and take a look at doubt and faith from the standpoint that the Catholic Encyclopedia will say that the two are cannot go together at all, that they are not mutually compatible. I will disagree with that and like to say you can't really have one without the other. And even for religious people, there are times of doubt. There are absolutely, I don't care how faithful you are, there are times of doubt. And for the doubters, should we talk about Thomas a little bit? Yeah. The doubters, there is always the redemption through faith. Again, religious words, but you find that in baseball. that has happened so many times with teams and with players who will go have a lot of doubt, and all of a sudden their faith will be restored, and then I think they believe.
Yeah.
It's almost a mathematical formula.
Well, and then the other word that's connected with all of this is if people have faith, it could lead to miracles. And so, now you've got the miracle Mets from what, 69? Was that the miracle year?
I'm not really. The miracle was the of Coogan's Bluff. That was a 1951, I think, event.
Way before the Mets.
When the Giants were versus the Dodgers, and the Polo Grounds were still up in the Manhattan on the hill up there, and that was when, at the 9th inning, last game, all things out, slugger Bobby Thompson came up and hit the ball, and it's still called the shot that was heard around the world, and it won the pennant.
And the whole idea
that was a miracle. I'm sorry.
and the Cubs winning the World Series. Some people would say that was miraculous, although they worked hard to get to that point. But this kind of language is applied again in many sports, but baseball has been around longer than most of our American sports. We're
into our second century of baseball, and right here in the Southern Tier, we have a glorious history, as you said, in the first 100 years of baseball.
The bingos, I think they were called. Yeah. So I had another piece of this book I wanted to share. Some of the music we've talked about, hymns like "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" is kind of the amazing grace of baseball, I guess. Baseball has inspired songs of praise, poems of lament. Terry Cashman paid tribute to Willie Mays, Mickey Mantle, and Duke Snider in Talking Baseball. Paul Stuckey of Peter, Paul and Mary sang of redemption playing Right Field, the name of one song. John Fogerty had a song called Center Field. And then there's that Bruce Springsteen song about the glory days. Where he talks about this a former baseball player comes into a bar and all he can talk about is his glory days. And then Steve Goodman, the late Steve Goodman, a wonderful folk singer who wrote the City of New Orleans, and Arlo Guthrie sang it. One of his songs was called "The Dying Cub Fan's Last Request." And he wanted to be buried. It's a wonderful song full of references that only Chicago Cubs fans would understand.
Right. Oh, goodness. I'm thinking about tradition, as you mentioned all that, and tradition in baseball, of course, tradition in church is a huge thing.
We don't want change.
We don't like change. The famous 7 last words of the church, we've always done it that way. That sort of thing. And so change doesn't come in. And it's the same thing in Binghamton. I think the Rumble Ponies had a hard time this year because there was so much change at the beginning of the season, and there was disruption and everything else, and the team has just done, and the manager has done a magnificent job of cohesiveness and bringing everything together to where it is today. So I'd like to give them a little toot here.
Oh, yes, right.
But the thing I'd like to just mention about...
And to close with, because we're getting...
Okay, that, just baseball is more than a game, and it is less than a god, and when transformed, I think, by the Holy Scripts, whether it's the Torah, the Bible, or the Quran, baseball can be received as a gift. To be enjoyed forever. So I just like to leave it.
And once again, I think that sense of community is strong among the players who support one another, and then the unconditional love that we have for our teams and our loyalty to them.
There's a lot of parallels between the two. Or maybe it's just you and I see it that way, but we hope everybody else does.
And we had our 27 minutes, so now you may have yours. So thank you again, Bob White, an author, retired Presbyterian minister, and often my seatmate at NYSEG Stadium. And thank you for being with us. Again, I remind you about the Chow Walk on September 17th, beginning at 1 o'clock with registration at Binghamton University. You can go online to the Broome County Council of Churches website and find more information about that. I'm Jeff Kellam, thanking you for being with us and hoping that in the coming week you'll be gentle with people and with yourself.